Hello friends and welcome back to our channel LSH Movies. The beginning of the movie shows a lab where an unknown person is experimenting on a frog in a laboratory. In fact, the man was extracting serum from the frog and the same man was listening to the news on the radio. Where in the news it is reported that a creature has attacked on the side of the road. The man is shocked to hear this. Then we are shown the first scene of this creature, where this creature has attacked a man and a woman and killed them in a very bad way. The creature had severed the girl's head from her body. Now this creature is attacking man badly. At the same time we see a car passing by on the road, in which a family is sitting, and in it a couple and their daughter are traveling. Their daughter's name is Victoria. Her parents are arguing over something. Victoria is very upset because of their fight. Victoria lived in a hostel and had been living with her parents for a long time. The next scene shows Victoria eating with her parents. Victoria's father is actually her stepfather, but he loved her like his own daughter. Here Victoria's father starts asking her about her studies, but Victoria dislikes her father's words and angrily goes to her room. Victoria is lying in her bed at night when she receives a message from her best friend, in which she was saying that you have come to this city after a long time, so why don't we go to a party somewhere? Victoria agrees to go. She noticed that her parents were still arguing. Victoria comes downstairs and picks up her father's car keys. She is slowly leaving the house. That her younger brother sees her and asks her, "Where are you going at this time of night?" Victoria leaves the house giving him chocolates, and then she takes the car a little farther without starting. Her brother tells her father that she is stealing the car. Her father gets angry and tries to stop her, but he can't stop Victoria and Victoria drives away. Her father gets very angry with her and then her father comes home and starts calling the police. He says someone stole his car, but Victoria's mother tells him not to. Then Victoria's father cuts off the call and puts the mobile. On the way, Victoria receives her friend from her home. Victoria sees that her car is running out of gas, and she has no money, but Victoria finds her father's wallet in the car. She sees that there is no money in the wallet, but she gets her father's credit card. They start walking towards the gas station, but then we see the same creature watching them from the roof of the gas station. As Victoria's friend enters to fetch the fuel, a boy is shown. His name is Eden. He is watching the news. At the same time, he is very nervous. The news shows that this creature has killed 7 people so far. Eden is very upset to see this. And at the same time, it is shown that while Victoria's friend is talking to her, the creature suddenly pulls her upside down. Victoria wonders where her friend has suddenly gone. Then all of a sudden his friend's severed head falls in front of Victoria. Seeing this, Victoria gets very scared and starts running away. Victoria also runs away screaming and Eden hears Victoria screaming and he too gets scared. The creature begins to chase after Victoria. The creature is constantly chasing him and then hides behind a Victoria train car. And she thinks that maybe the creature is gone. The creature follows him and attacks him with its claws, injuring him severely. Only then does one inject something into the creature's throat with the help of a fire pin, due to which the creature starts falling on the ground. Then we see that the pin was injected by Eden, not by anyone else. The injection normalizes the creature. That is, when it comes to its original form, we see that it is a girl. Eden then pulls the girl and Victoria away and takes them away. Then a month later the time is shown. Victoria has not yet returned home, so her father calls a private investigator into the house. The name of this private investigator was Paul. Victoria's father tells Paul that police found out that his daughter had disappeared from the gas station. "I suspect Eden, the gas station worker, is behind it all," said Paul. Because Paul is a private investigator, he also has Eden's bio data. Paul tells them he was a student at Eden College and was arrested on drug charges. The night Victoria disappeared from the house was a full moon night. And I think this creature has a connection to Victoria. Because this creature attacks only on a full moon night, it has made Victoria its prey. Victoria's father doesn't believe her. And then we find out that Paul has a vision disorder. He sees in his vision that he is killing Victoria's father. Paul asks Victoria's parents if Victoria used drugs, and her parents say yes. Now in the next scene we are shown the same flashback scene when Eden took Victoria with him. Victoria was badly injured and in pain. And here Victoria also sees a woman near her who is terrifying. The story then moves on to the present, where we see Victoria. Her sudden sleep opens her eyes. And she was okay and she didn't get hurt. Victoria is shown in the woods and here we see Eden working in a laboratory. This is the same lab we saw at the beginning of the movie. That is, when someone was extracting serum from a frog's body. Because Paul had suspicions about Eden, he spied on her. When Eden is not there, Paul arrives and begins his laboratory tests. Eden looks at Paul in the camera and quickly returns to his gas job. There was actually Eden's lab near the gas station. Eden starts reading his books in front of Paul and Paul sees vision again. He attacks Eden in his dreams and puts his fingers in her eyes, injuring her severely. When Paul leaves after drinking coffee, he wisely throws his coffee there. Meanwhile, Paul sticks a small piece of wood in the door. He walks away doing this and he does it so that he can easily open the door next time he comes. Paul is spying on Eden in his car when he suddenly sees Victoria walking out of the woods towards Eden. Victoria asks Eden for the serum Eden was removing from the frog's body. Eden gives Victoria the serum and tells her to be careful. Paul looks at Victoria through a telescope and Paul realizes that Victoria has just come from Eden. Paul follows her as she walks into the woods. When Paul arrives, he sees that Victoria has made a place for herself. Then Paul arrives and starts taking pictures. He receives a can of serum injection. He meets Victoria and tells her he is an investigator. He tells her that his father has hired her to look for him. Victoria hits Paul on the head with a tan and runs away. Paul follows him. She hides behind a tree. It was as if Paul had left. But suddenly Paul aims his gun at Victoria from behind. And here again Paul sees vision. He sees in his dreams that he has destroyed Victoria, but we see in the next scene that he is taking her with him. Along the way he says, "I can help you if you are in trouble or need help." Victoria doesn't tell him anything. Then in the next scene, Eden is shown working in his lab. He is hiding behind a curtain. In fact, the girl is behind the veil that was transformed into the first creature. "I made that creature," Eden tells him. Due to some deficiency in serum, it has changed from human to creature. Eden did not tell Victoria that I was responsible. In fact, whenever this creature attacks a human being, the other human being also becomes a creature. This means that it is a viral infection that spreads like a zombie virus. This creature attacked Victoria with its claws. So she too will now become a creature. The serum that Eden gave to Victoria would actually deactivate the serum creature's cells so that it would not turn into a creature. Paul brings Victoria to her home where Victoria's parents are waiting for her. Paul shows Victoria's father a picture of a serum box and tells him that he has been an investigator for 15 years but I have never seen anything like it. Her father asked Paul, "Where is the serum at the moment?" Paul explains that it is inside his bag and his father takes the serum out of his bag. Now we are shown a flashback scene where Eden bandages Victoria's wound and saves her life with the help of serum. When she regained consciousness, Victoria asked, "How did you get here in Eden?" "Who brought me here?" Eden says, "I brought you here. I fixed you." Eden tied Victoria to a stretcher, so that they could not attack anyone while changing into creatures. Victoria asks Eden, "Which animal attacked me?" Eden knows everything about creatures, but he doesn't tell Victoria anything. Victoria says, "I have to go home," but Eden forbids her to go anywhere. He says, "You will not go anywhere," and says, "You will not go out unless you are given another dose." Victoria says the second dose should be given quickly, but Eden says it will be given next month. "If I give you an injection of this dose now, you may die." Victoria attacks Eden with a pair of scissors lying there and injects Eden, who is lying nearby. Eden faints and Victoria escapes when the opportunity arises. Later the scene changes to the present moment. Victoria's father is furious, and Paul is still watching Eden. Eden goes to his lab and Paul comes to his shop as soon as he gets the chance, and starts checking everything. Paul gets a dose of serum in a box. Eden is putting bottles of serum in a box in his lab, and he doesn't know that Paul is in his shop. Today was a full moon night and Victoria is looking for a serum in her bag but she can't find it. Victoria's father then comes to her where he has the serum. Victoria asks for the serum but her father does not give it to her and starts beating her. Because her father feels they are drugs and Victoria explains to her father that they are not drugs. She says it's medicine. There is a serum, but her father slaps her. Then he breaks the bottle of serum and Victoria starts crying like crazy. Her father locks her in a room and locks her door from the outside. Then the full moon night begins. Victoria was screaming and her body was changing, meaning she would be transformed into a creature. On the other hand, Eden also finds out that someone has stolen the serum from his box. This makes Eden very angry. Then we find out that Eden was also influenced by this creature. It requires a dose of serum at any cost. On the other hand, we see that Victoria's condition is deteriorating and her mouth is bleeding. Her teeth were also starting to change. And as soon as he sees it, the hair on his head also falls out. And throughout the process, Victoria has been screaming a lot. Her mother comes to see her after hearing her screams. By then Victoria had become a creature. Victoria pulls her mother in, who is standing at the door. She attacks him and beats her mother to death. Here we see Eden come into his lab and inject serum into his body. Then when her father comes to see her, she finds a creature instead of Victoria. Her father is frightened when he sees her and rushes to his car. Her car does not start and then she reaches Victoria and attacks her father and kills him. Her younger brother sees her doing this. Now Victoria starts chasing her younger brother. He rides his bicycle and runs faster than that. Creatures also constantly follow it. Then Paul comes to Victoria's house. He sees that the condition of Victoria's room is very bad. There was blood everywhere. Paul thinks someone has wiped out Victoria's entire family. Meanwhile, the police arrive at Victoria's house. The officer says that people have told me that there is noise coming from this house. Screams and screams were coming from this house. Paul lies that I own this house and this is my house. The police officer thinks that everything is fine in his house. That's why the policeman leaves. Eden sees on CCTV that Paul has stolen her serum. Victoria is shown grabbing her younger brother and attacking and eating him. As soon as the officer sees the creature, he moves towards it. Creatures also begin to move towards it. This creature also destroys it in an attack. Paul comes to Eden with his gun, and seeing him, Eden comes to his lab. Paul follows him into the lab, but when Eden is about to attack him, Paul first attacks and knocks Eden unconscious. He then ties her to a chair. Paul looks for hidden serum bottles. And finally he gets those bottles. He begins to break them one by one. Paul then injects this serum into a syringe and injects it into Croydon's nose. The serum slowly begins to move into Eden's body. And after a while that creature also comes there. She attacks Paul and injures him severely. Then the creature moves towards a girl who is tied up by Eden there. She attacks and kills him too. The creature then removes the syringe from Eden's nose and injects it into his body. After the serum is injected, the creature returns to its normal form. And here we see that this creature was none other than Victoria. As soon as she returns to her normal form, Victoria releases Eden's arms and legs. When Victoria finds out that she has eaten her family into a creature. So she gets very depressed and starts crying. Then here Eden tells Victoria that he made that creature. Victoria is furious. Victoria then aims Paul's gun at Eden. Eden forbids Victoria to do so and says you are wrong. Don't kill me or you won't be able to stop this process of becoming a creature. This means that Victoria will always be a creature. Victoria does not shoot at him, and Paul regains consciousness. Then Eden starts his treatment too. In the next scene we see that Victoria is now living with Eden. They keep Paul with them. Because he was also influenced by a creature, he can attack people and destroy them. The next full moon was 25 days away. Paul also asks Victoria to end it, but she refuses to do so. And that's where the movie ends. Friends, if you liked this movie, you must like this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks. See you next time with another new video.